Number 7. Tension. I originally had this at 6, but I strongly suspect I'm feeling a lot of recency bias with this one, so I'm gonna put it at 7. Tension was a moment for Kylie. Not only did the lead single Padam Padam have a huge viral moment, but the album was a major success, topping the charts in the UK and Australia, showing how the music industry's ageism is no match for Kylie. Tension is largely a dance and synth-pop record, with influences from 80s music on tracks like You Still Get Me High and Things We Do for Love. It isn't entirely cohesive, but that was the point. Kylie said she wanted the album to be about living in the moment, summarized by the song Hold On To Now, which is one of those songs that makes me super emotional whenever I listen to it. It gets me dancing and crying at the same time. It's one of those tracks. Tension is just such a perfectly crafted record. Every song, despite all again being essentially dance pop tracks, has its own special thing that makes it stand out, like the heartbeat in Padam Padam, the robotic voice in Tension, the 70s disco throwback of One More Time, and my personal favorite, Kylie's rapping in Hands. I was not expecting that, but now it gets me so hyped. The fact that over 30 years into her career she could still come up with music that's this fresh and mainstream accessible just shows what a true professional Kylie is in her field. Tension is her 16th album, and it's still filled with hit after hit. I've said it before, and I will say it till the day that I die, Kylie is too good for this world. Number 6. Disco. Released when the world really needed a collective serotonin boost, 2020's Disco delivered exactly what its title promised, an all-night, non-stop rager. Similar to Tension, each of Disco's tracks has its own unique personality and moments that make them distinctive. The spoken word bridge in Dance Floor Darling, the frantic energy of Last Chance, the excessive auto-tuning to make a robotic voice in Supernova, Disco is all over the place and crazy in the absolute best way. The album is obviously a throwback to 70s disco, funk, and dance pop music, which Kylie of course has no trouble fitting into. In my opinion, Disco is a spiritual successor to Light Years more than anything, given its over-the-top campiness. It is sparkly, sequined, unapologetically earnest escapism at its purest. The definition of an album that a DJ could just throw on at a gay club and everyone will be dancing for the whole night. And on a personal note, Disco holds a very special place in my heart. I originally got into Kylie in 2020. Given the state of the world back then, I pretty much had nothing better to do than get into her imposingly large discography. Finally listening to it all was one of the best decisions I ever made, and she's remained one of my favorite artists ever since. Disco was the first album of hers to drop while I was a fan, so for that reason, I'll always personally hold it in high regard. Number 5. Impossible Princess. The second and final album of the 90s indie Kylie phase, Impossible Princess delves even further into experimental territory. This is not what the average person thinks of when they think Kylie Minogue. While it's still danceable and upbeat in parts, it's undoubtedly her darkest record thematically, with themes of self-hatred, anxiety, and paranoia. The production, which borrows from genres like grunge, electronica, trip-hop, and rock, creates a menacing and unsettling atmosphere, especially in tracks like Drunk, Say Hey, or the stellar opener Too Far. I haven't actually heard much from either band, but I've heard Impossible Princess described as Kylie's take on an Oasis or Blur record, and just going off of vibes, I could see that. Lyrically, Kylie drew from her own mental struggles and life experiences to write the songs, which are unusually candid for her discography. Kylie, for the most part, keeps her personal life and career separate, and doesn't typically do heavy records like Impossible Princess, which makes it all the more special when she does. And again, not to be all cheesy, but I just can't help it when it comes to Kylie, but Impossible Princess has grown on me so much over the years. I liked it a lot when I first listened, but I distinctly remember thinking that this would be one of those albums that I would eventually form a soul connection with, and honestly, I have. Breathe especially is that song for me. As someone who's pretty much just chronically stressed, it's good to have songs like that could calm me down and bring me back down to earth. Definitely a top 5 Kylie song for me. I Don't Need Anyone and Some Kind of Bliss are also great. Kylie sounds shockingly so good on these late 90s rock tracks, and both songs never fail to put me in a better mood thanks to their uplifting lyrics. Impossible Princess, in my opinion, is the album that stands out the most in Kylie's discography. While I do think she is a weirder artist than people usually give her credit for, she truly doesn't have another full album like this one. The closest she ever came to making music like this again was her work with Fernando Garibay, and even then they only had 2 EPs. Impossible Princess is a full experience that I think even a lot of non-Kylie fans would love. If you want to have a great night, take an edible, put your headphones in, and just listen to this record straight through. It is a journey. Number 4, X. I just did a video about this album, so I'll try to keep this brief, but in my opinion, 2007's X goes so underrated nowadays. Her comeback record after a years-long battle with breast cancer, X, in many ways, is the exact opposite of Impossible Princess. While she does get personal on tracks like No More Rain and Cosmic, X is 95% escapism. Drawing from 80s rock, electro, and synthpop, X is all killer, no filler. Kylie herself comes across as an icy, robotic dance queen, and is clearly having the time of her life while doing it. The tracks themselves are among some of her earwormiest, especially Speakerphone, Nudity, and Wow. I look at this album similar to how I look at Kiss Me Once. It's not the most cohesive, but that doesn't matter. The songs are simply bops, and Kylie's enthusiasm and warmth shines throughout. If you want to hear more about X, check out my video going into it, but as of now, I'll just say, I personally rank it among her finest. Number 3, Light Years. Truthfully, these top 3 could all switch places, and I think whatever ranking would be valid. Light Years, released in 2000, is seen as Kylie's comeback record, after being dragged for Impossible Princess's relative underperformance. And good god did she course correct, because I can't imagine 2 more opposite albums. Ditching the previous records' darkness and heaviness, Light Years saw Kylie return to the clubs, with her specific brand of campy dance pop. The lead single, Spinning Around, and its video have become one of the most enduring pop culture moments of the 2000s. Not only did this show that she was back, but she'd matured her sound from her Stock Aitken Waterman days and updated it to sound fresh and modern, while still being a throwback to classic disco. That's really why I think Light Years works so well. It never takes itself too seriously. This was an album made to get the girls and the gays to the dance floor, and with tracks like Butterfly, Disco Down, and On a Night Like This, it's impossible not to move while listening. I also did a video about this one, so check it out if you want a more in-depth look, but honestly, what else is there to say at this point? It's Light Years, one of the most iconic and legendary pop albums of all time. And while we're on that subject, number 2, Fever. Arguably the record she's best known for, at the very least in the States. Fever is everything you could possibly need from a Kylie album. Pulsing electronic beats, immaculate disco production, and of course Kylie's sexy and seductive performance. As if Light Years wasn't enough of a comeback, Fever, released just a year later, spawned her biggest international hit to date, Can't Get You Out of My Head, which has one of the most addictive hooks in all of pop music. As someone who lives in the States, I can very confidently say this song was everywhere back in the early to mid 2000s, and I still hear it on the radio sometimes if I'm out doing something. It's one of those ubiquitous songs that everyone knows, though sadly it's also the only Kylie song many Americans know, since we simply lack taste. While I love Can't Get You Out of My Head, the third single, Love at First Sight, is my favorite from this era. Pure euphoric dance pop bliss that always leaves me happier after I listen to it. Aside from the singles, Fever is consistently excellent throughout. No dull moment, no time to slow down, just Kylie in her natural element. The best deep cut to me is Love Affair. That one is auditory crack if I've ever heard it. And the ending with her vocal runs playing in the background over the thumping chorus, orgasmic. While I could cite a few tracks as being relatively weaker compared to the rest, that's only because the standard of excellence on Fever is so high to begin with. In my opinion, this is a legendary album not just because of the music, although that certainly helps, but because it's an example of an artist in their prime. There's an effortless cool and confidence to Kylie here that feels stronger than it does on any of her other albums, even my number 1 pick. This was an artist who knew she was at the top of the world and was going to show everyone why she deserved to be there, by making the timeless music that we'll still be dancing to decades from now. And also, it just happened to be released on my birthday. Not that that means anything, it just feels kinda cosmic to me. Number 1, Aphrodite. Released in 2010, Aphrodite is one of those simply perfect pop records. And I'm not just talking from a technical or production standpoint, I'm talking about this album's energy. Aphrodite, like Fever, gives you no time to catch your breath, bouncing from synthpop, europop, rave, electronic, and disco to make a party big enough for the goddesses themselves. What I think gives this album the slightest edge over Fever is its grandeur. While Fever gives off more of a sexy and sophisticated vibe, Aphrodite is uninhibited, unbridled, explosive joy throughout. The songs themselves sound big, and there's a grandness to almost every track that makes you feel like you're genuinely on Mount Olympus. What helps push it even more over the top is its consistency. While I generally don't need albums to be super cohesive, for projects like this, where an artist is embodying a character and living in their world, I think it is important to stay on theme if you want to make a truly memorable experience. Aphrodite never loses sight of its creative vision. Many other artists may have called the album Aphrodite and had one or two songs that actually reference Greek mythology or stayed true to the character, but Kylie stays consistent on both fronts throughout. This was the first record Kylie recruited an executive producer for, who just so happened to be the legendary Stuart Price, who you may know for co-producing Madonna's Confessions on a Dance Floor, so that most likely explains why the album is her most consistent. These two together were a match made in heaven, and the timing couldn't have been more favorable. Being released in 2010 when club music was a huge trend definitely informed the album's direction, and of course, as a dance floor queen herself, Kylie fits naturally in among the EDM beats. Some of her all-time greatest songs are here, including Cupid Boy, Get Out of My Way, which is my favorite of hers, and the euphoric lead single All the Lovers. Aphrodite represents a creative professional at the top of their craft who knows how to get people moving. I did a ranking of how I personally like the songs a little while ago, and I still stand by it, so check that out if you want to hear my in-depth thoughts on each track. But as of right now, in my opinion, Aphrodite is Kylie Minogue's best album. And as always, what do y'all think? Do you agree? Disagree? And how would you rank her discography? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.